Hello and welcome to Digital Farm TV Rural News. I'm Andy Walker. Meat and Livestock Australia's mid-year cattle forecast this week suggests that total Australian beef and veal exports for 2013 would reach 1 million tonne, the highest on record. This was the result of high slaughter levels due to regional drought, sustained growth in emerging markets and the recent softening of the Australian dollar. Australia had capitalised on market access advantages in China with demand spurred by limited access for US and Brazilian beef and increased local consumer demand. Meanwhile, Western Australian Agriculture Minister Ken Baston this week announced a radical plan for Australia to give Indonesia 10,000 breeding heifers each year in return for live cattle imports being restored to past high levels. The minister said it would cost about $5 million a year in heifer donations to lock in annual trade worth $250 million, according to the West Australian. The federal government would buy the cattle from producers across the country through Austrade and pay for delivery through local exporters. Still on the ocean wave, a Victorian judge this week granted a temporary injunction to stop Maritime Service Union members and supporters picketing at Melbourne's Station Pier. Protesters had been blockading access for produce to be loaded on and off the Spirit of Tasmania since last Friday. Supreme Court Justice Gregory Gard ruled that he was satisfied the business of stevedore and company Cube was being disrupted. The protest was potentially serious for Tasmanian producers and consumers because the two-way flow of fresh produce could be halted, according to Tasmanian Farmers and Graziers Association Chief Executive Jan Davis. The Australian grain industry is to supply 3,000 tonne of grain a year to Food Bank Australia to help feed the poor. Growers will donate the grain, processors will donate factory time to produce around 1,200 tonne of breakfast cereal, 800 tonne of pasta, 400 tonne of flour and 240 tonne of bread, the equivalent of 20 to 30 million meals. Grain Trade Australia will manage a consultative group whose job will be to coordinate the collection, processing and delivery of the grain. Back in Western Australia, that controversial mega wind farm development application in the south of the state near Kojonup, about which we reported last week, has been given the green light by state authorities. Construction is expected to start late next year. Concerns remain, however, that the project could create difficulties for the region's broadacre farmers. Fifth-generation local producer and opponent, Roger Bilney, said although he was still against the wind farm, he wished for the best outcome for his community. New South Wales farmers this week expressed serious concerns over what it described as a New South Wales government attempt to rush through amendments to state environmental planning policy, which placed a higher value on resource projects than farmland, the environment and communities. New South Wales Farmers President Fiona Simpson described the proposed amendments as quite extraordinary and said the association and its farming members were shocked at the approach the New South Wales government had taken. She said the proposed amendments were a blatant way to loosen up the planning process for the sole benefit of mining, petroleum production and extractive industries. Finally, in North America, the US Department of Agriculture has reportedly paid tens of millions of dollars to thousands of dead farmers during the past 5 years. That's according to a government watchdog audit released on Monday. The Government Accountability Office has estimated that agencies within the USDA may have paid more than $30 million to thousands of deceased beneficiaries between 2008 and 2012, Fox News reports. The findings this week came as Congress tried to pass a new farm bill, and the news stirred concerns that the government's subsidy programs were not being carefully managed. Well, that's it for Digital Farm TV Rural News this week. I'm Andy Walker and look forward to your company again next week.